He strangled women until they passed out. Then he waited for them to wake up and did it again. Then he washed, put on brown velvet, and went on national television to make a joke about bananas. I had been fighting a new television for 3 hours. It keeps recommending dating shows. Perfect teeth, perfect hair, and smiles with nothing behind them. So let me tell you about one episode from 1978. The audience clapped on cue. The bachelor behind the screen was in the middle of a killing spree, and the network had put him there. Stay with me, because the woman who picked him is the only person in this story whose judgment worked. And 27 days later, America put a woman on the dollar. 13th of September, 1978. The Dating Game is one of the biggest shows on American television. You know the format even if you have never seen it. A woman sits on one side of a screen, 3 men sit on the other, and she cannot see them. She asks loaded questions that try to be charming, and at the end she picks one. The host is Jim Lang. The woman is Cheryl Bradshaw. Bachelor number 1 is a successful photographer with a thick head of disco hair. Brown velvet suit, wide collar, open at the chest, one leg over the other, smiling like he already owns the studio. Cheryl asks him what his best time is. He answers low and slow. The best time is at night. Nighttime. The audience laughs. Jim Lang grins. Then she says she's serving him for dinner and asks what he's called and what he looks like. I'm called the banana and I look really good. She asks him to be more descriptive. Peel me. The room comes apart. Today that exchange makes your teeth hurt. In 1978 it was prime time, and the whole show ran on jokes like that. Now hold that laughter and look at what Bachelor number 1 was doing that season. He was in the middle of a killing spree. He did not simply kill women. He played with them. He strangled them until they lost consciousness, waited for them to come back, and started again. Prosecutors described exactly that at his trial. For him it was power in its purest chemical form. And then he washed, put on his best suit, and went on television to make a joke about bananas. 3 women were already dead by that taping. A jury convicted him of all 3 in 2010. I have watched that tape more than once. The wobbling picture, the flower cutouts, the applause sign, and every time I end up thinking about the producers and the casting directors. Where exactly were you looking? Because this man was not a ghost. He did not live without papers. He left a trail that should have turned any competent safety officer gray. 1968. A driver in Los Angeles sees a man walk an 8-year-old girl into an apartment building. Her name was Tali Shapiro. The driver called the police and followed. Officers knocked. A man opened the door, said he would be one moment, and went back inside. They found the girl on the kitchen floor beaten nearly to death. She spent 32 days in a coma. She lived, and she is the reason we know his name at all. He went out the back and ran to New York. His name was Rodney Alcala. In New York, he lived under a stolen name, John Berder, and enrolled in film school at New York University. The FBI put him on his 10 most wanted list in 1971. He was working at the summer camp in New Hampshire when 2 teenagers recognized him from a post office poster. He was arrested that August. Then the system did something remarkable. The Shapiro family had moved abroad and would not bring their daughter back to testify. Without her, the case fell to a lesser charge, and he served 34 months. He was paroled in 1974. Within months, he was convicted again for assaulting a 13-year-old girl. He walked out in 1977 as a registered sex offender. We all keep the same picture in our heads. The monster is filthy and muttering, hiding in the bushes, unable to string 2 words together. Sometimes that is true, but if they all look like that, we would catch them on the second day. The frightening ones are the ones you invite into your house, the ones you smile back at. Alcala worked on charisma. He introduced himself as a fashion photographer, and he could actually shoot. He had a professional camera, business cards, and clean, articulate speech. He walked up to young women on the beach and on the streets of Los Angeles. He offered to build them a portfolio for the magazines, and they went with him, into his car, into his studio, out to remote canyons for location work. They went because he looked like someone from the scene, from the glossy world they wanted into. He looked safe. So how does a registered sex offender end up in prime time? The show did run checks. Decades later, the producers said so on the record. Ellen Metzger ran contestant coordination. Her husband Mike Metzger was executive producer. David Greenfield produced. Their explanation was that the technology wasn't there. In 1978, a background check was a letter, paper files, a request in the mail, weeks of waiting, and the tape days were already booked. Here is the part that matters. Mike Metzger said the man struck him as strange. Jed Mills, sitting beside him as bachelor number 2, said the same. Did not miss him. They booked him anyway because he interviewed well and the camera loved him. Show business does not care about safety when a good shot is on the line. At the end of the episode, Cheryl Bradshaw made her choice. She chose Rodney Alcala. They won tennis lessons and a paid trip. The audience applauded the happy couple. The sign told them when, and Jim Lang sent everyone home. On tape, it is the end of a nice half hour. It is not the end of the story, and the rest of it happens with the cameras off. The lights went down, the microphones came off, and backstage, away from the audience, Cheryl Bradshaw stopped cold. Whatever he had been doing in front of the camera, she was not buying it off camera. She went home and did not sleep on it for long. The next day, she called the show and refused to go anywhere with him. Her words, "There's weird vibes that are coming off of him, is very strange. I'm not comfortable." Every check that building ran had cleared this man. One woman standing next to him did not. Her instinct worked where an entire network's process failed. Alcala shrugged and moved on. 9 months later, a 12-year-old girl borrowed a friend's bicycle in Huntington Beach. Her name was Robin Samso. The date was the 20th of June, 1979, and she was riding to a ballet lesson. She never arrived. Her remains were found in the foothills 12 days later. A witness had seen a photographer working the beach that afternoon, and a police sketch went out. A parole officer in Los Angeles looked at it and recognized his own client. When they finally had him, the scale broke the investigators. In a rented storage locker in Seattle, they found photographs. More than 1,000 of them. Young women, teenagers, small children. They are posing for him. They are smiling into his lens, larking about, some of them in explicit poses. He took every one of those pictures himself. Police have been releasing batches of them for years, asking the public for help, and almost none of the people in them have ever been named. In March 2010, the Huntington Beach Police put out more than 100 of the images. 400 calls came in within a week. 9 women were identified. All 9 were alive. 9 out of more than 1,000 faces. That is the actual horror of that locker. It is not a list of victims. It is a wall of strangers. And 47 years later, we still cannot put names on them. You have heard a number attached to him. 130. It is in thumbnails and in the first 20 seconds of videos with millions of views. Nobody has ever proved it. It is not a police figure and it has no author. Investigators have firmly tied 8 murders to him, and he was convicted of 5. Suppose the real number is far higher than 5. Given that locker, that is entirely possible. It is still a guess, and a guess in a thumbnail is not a body count. One more, and this one is everywhere. The story goes that at film school he sat in lectures given by Roman Polanski. It is in article after article, and it is in the retellings of the Netflix film. What holds up is that he enrolled at NYU under a false name. Nobody has produced a record putting the 2 men in the same room. It is a perfect detail. That is exactly why it travels. A monster is easier to carry when he comes with a famous name attached. They tried him 3 times. In 1980, he was convicted and sentenced to death for Robin Samso. 4 years later, the California Supreme Court threw the verdict out because the jury had been told about his earlier crimes. They tried him again in 1986 and convicted him again. That one was overturned in 2001. over a witness who had been hypnotized. Twice, the man who spent his life passing for someone else walked away from a death sentence on procedure, only the third trial held. In 2010, a jury convicted him of 5 counts of first-degree murder, and he loved every minute of it. At the third trial, he fired his lawyers and defended himself. He put himself on the witness stand and questioned himself, switching voices as he went. He asked in a low register and answered in a higher one for about 5 hours. He turned the capital murder trial into a personal show. He died on the 24th of July, 2021, age 77. He was still waiting for an execution the state had stopped carrying out. Now, go back to that autumn because something else was happening while he was on television. On the 3rd of May 1978, Senator William Proxmire introduced a bill. It asked the United States to put a real woman on its money. Susan B. Anthony was arrested in 1872 for voting and fined $100 she never paid. Frank Gasparro cut her portrait for the Mint. On the 10th of October 1978, Jimmy Carter signed it. Public Law 95-447. Count the days from that broadcast to that signature. 27. And this is that dollar. 1980 San Francisco approved strike. 3,554,806 of them were made. This one grades 69 out of 70. It is not rare, and I am not going to pretend to you that it is, because look at what happened to it. America hated it. It is 26.5 millimeters across. A quarter is 24.3. Same color, same alloy, same reeded edge. People spent dollars thinking they were quarters. Polling that year put disapproval at 66%. By 1981, there were 520 million of them sitting in vaults. The men stopped making them. The country asked for a woman on its money, got her, and handed her back. Not because of who she was, because of what she looked like from the side. That is the whole autumn of 1978 in 2 objects, 27 days apart. A network put a man on air because he looked like a photographer. A country refused $1 because it looked like a quarter. And the only thing in this entire story that actually worked was one woman who stood close enough to see him. You often hear older people say, "We have all got more careful, more suspicious." We have not. We still believe a good picture, but to Rodney on a dating app today, professional lighting on the profile shot, a camera in his hands, one well-written joke in the bio, the queue for a free photo session would run for months. That is why I made the video about fake silver coins. Same machine, smaller stakes. The fake looks more right than the real thing. And what catches it is 30 seconds and your own hands. Subscribe if you want more of these. And tell me in the comments, have you ever met someone with a perfect profile who scared you in person?